It began on a restless autumn night, when the wind howled through the slats of my childhood home, rattling window panes and stirring long-forgotten memories. I had returned to the old family house for the first time in years, drawn by the death of my grandmother and the promise of inheriting her possessions. Among faded photographs and yellowing letters lay a small, unassuming wooden box, worn and stained, with intricate carvings of twisting vines and strange circular symbols along its lid. A tarnished brass latch held it shut. No one in the family could recall where it came from. It seemed to materialize in my grandmother's things, as though it had always been part of the household. I lifted the box gently, feeling a strange heaviness in my palms. The carvings felt almost alive under my fingertips, as though they pulsed faintly with a hidden energy. That night, I carried it upstairs to my childhood bedroom, the same room where I had once dreamed of monsters hiding under the bed. As I placed it on the desk in front of my laptop, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. The lamp on the desk flickered twice before steadying, casting elongated shadows across the walls. I tried to ignore the uneasy sensation, chalking it up to my imagination and the old house settling. After all, it was just a box, one I intended to open in the morning. But when I awoke, I was not in my bedroom. The familiar floral wallpaper and the worn quilt were gone, replaced by a stark, featureless room bathed in an otherworldly gray light. There was no ceiling, only a murky expanse of mist that stretched beyond sight. I lay on my back on cold, smooth stone, my heart pounding as I struggled to comprehend where I was. A sudden, metallic creak made me bolt upright, and I saw the box at my feet, its lid slowly opening on its own accord. I scrambled back, trying to put distance between myself and whatever lay within. From the darkness inside, a shape emerged, a formless shadow, shifting and contorting like smoke caught in a draft. Its edges flickered, revealing fleeting visions. A child's face twisted in terror, a gnarled hand reaching out, empty eye sockets dripping with darkness. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. The shadow reached toward me, and I shut my eyes tight. When I opened them again, I was back in my bedroom, the morning sun streaming weakly through a dirty window. The box sat on my desk, its lid closed, as though nothing had happened. My heart raced as I tried to convince myself it was a dream. But the memory of that shadow, its hollow gaze, burned in my mind like a brand. Grabbing my phone, I glanced at the time. 6:43 a.m. The digital clock blinked on the bedside table. My shoulders slackened with relief. No missing hours, no threat of an actual nightmare realm. Yet I felt off-kilter, as though I had glimpsed something forbidden. I moved toward the window and drew back the threadbare curtain. A chill breeze carried the scent of decaying leaves and distant rain. Outside, the old oak tree in the backyard cast gnarled shadows over the overgrown lawn. The world seemed strangely still, as though holding its breath. I debated throwing the box back into the attic, but a morbid curiosity compelled me to keep it close. Perhaps if I understood its origins, I could quell the unease gnawing at me. I packed a small bag, journal, camera, voice recorder, and drove to the public library, determined to research any mention of a nightmare box. The town's history section, filled with yellowed ledgers and brittle newspaper clippings, yielded nothing. No legends, no family records, no hints. Only an old, undated photograph caught my eye. My grandmother as a young woman, standing on a stage, performing a puppet show. In her hands was a box, identical to mine. Same carvings, same latch. Below the photograph, a typed caption read, "Madame Leclerc's Traveling Show, circa 1952. Beneath that, a scribbled note in pencil said, "Box found in cellar, refuses to open." My heart thudded. Was this the same box? How had it come into my grandmother's possession? I copied the photo with my phone and left the library in a daze, the autumn breeze tugging at my jacket. That night, I resolved to open the box in full daylight, recording every moment. I set up my camera facing the wooden desk where it rested. The room was washed in golden afternoon light. With my hands trembling, I unlatched the brass catch. The lid creaked open to reveal a thick velvet lining, flawed by age. A heavy, leather-bound journal lay inside, its cover embossed with the same vine patterns. I lifted it out, tracing the letters on the spine. Le Carnet des Cauchemars, the notebook of nightmares. Inside, the pages were filled with elaborate drawings, twisted landscapes, spindly figures, and annotations in French and English. Each entry described a bizarre ritual or a peculiar artifact rumored to grant or curse dreams. As I leafed through, one passage caught my eye. Le coffret du cauchemar, a vessel to contain the darkest visions. To open is to invite those visions into the waking world. To close may imprison them forever, or set them loose once more. My pulse quickened. The last line, written in shaky handwriting, read simply, "Do not open the box." I snapped photos and shoved the journal back in the box. The temptation to close the lid was overwhelming. My fingers trembled as I dropped the latch shut. The moment it clicked into place, the room plunged into darkness. The camera's red recording light blinked off. I fumbled for the lamp, but the bulb shattered as soon as I flipped the switch, showering the desk in sparks. A guttural growl, low and resonant, reverberated from the box. I backed away, heart hammering. The box's lid creaked open an inch, revealing a sliver of pitch-black void. From within came a whisper, so soft I almost didn't hear it.
"Open me."
The void spoke directly into my mind, coaxing me with promises.
"I can show you what vanished, what is lost, what you cannot find anywhere else. All you have to do is open your eyes."
My skin crawled. "No," I whispered into the darkness, but the void laughed, soft at first, then mounting into a cacophony of tortured voices. Images flashed behind my eyelids. My grandmother's face, contorted in fear. A mansion aflame. Children screaming silently. Insects crawling from human flesh. I staggered backward until I crashed into the wall. Darkness receded, replaced by the dim glow of early evening as the power returned in a flicker. The lamp buzzed weakly, casting long shadows. Desperate to escape, I shoved the box into a trash bag and tossed it into my car. Before I could lock the doors, the entire vehicle shook violently, as though something massive were shaking it from the inside. The box slipped out and tumbled onto the floor, its latch flying open. I heard the whisper again, this time softer, pleading, almost human.
"Open me."
Slammed the door and fumbled with the ignition. The car roared to life and I sped away, unaware until later that the box was no longer in the back seat. It had vanished. A knot formed in my stomach. Where could it be? Terror seized me. Something had followed me. Something that now moved freely without a vessel. That night, I lay in bed, sweating despite the crisp air. Shadows in the corners writhed, and every floorboard creak jolted me upright. Around 2:15 a.m., I awoke to the sound of soft tapping at my window. My heart pounded so loudly I was convinced the neighbors would hear. I peered through the blinds. The world outside was still. No moon, no streetlights illuminated the empty street. Then, a pale hand pressed against the glass. Skin ashen, fingers slender and impossibly long, nails brittle like shards of bone. My breath caught. The hand retreated, but the tapping remained, moving along the glass as though something was trying to enter. I fled into the hallway, flipping on lights as I went. My phone's emergency flashlight beam cut through the darkness. In the living room, I found the box, sitting on the coffee table. Yet when I entered, it had not been there. Its lid lay half open, and the journal lay on top, pages covered in ink that had not been there moments before. Remember me. I backed away, shaking. The words seemed to tremble on the page, as though written moments ago with a trembling hand. Panic surged. I wrenched the box closed, but as soon as the latch clicked, the entire house shook as though in a tremor. Paint chipped from the walls, and the chandelier rattled. From every speaker, television, stereo, Even my phone emerged a high-pitched static that turned into a chorus of whispered names.
Ethan. Ethan. Ethan.
The air grew thick, suffocating. I stumbled outside, gasping for cold night air. I called my friend Mark, breathing heavily into the phone. "You have to come over," I rasped. "Something's wrong." He arrived 15 minutes later, flashlight in hand. I led him inside, but as we rounded the corner into the living room, the box was gone. The room was empty, save for a small puddle of black liquid seeping across the hardwood floor, inching toward our feet like ink on paper. "Did you see that?" I whispered, voice trembling. Mark nodded, eyes wide. He knelt, scooped a bit of the liquid onto his fingers, and tasted it. His face went pale. "Bile," he said quietly. "It's pure bile. How? Why?" Before he could finish, the front door slammed shut. Lights flickered, and the static chorus returned, louder, more insistent. Mark and I exchanged a glance of terror. We bolted for the door, but the knob spun uselessly. Then, simultaneously, we heard a creak from above, footsteps on the attic floor. I remembered the attic hatch had been sealed shut for years. Now, though, the nails had been ripped free. The hatch hung open, revealing darkness beyond. A single strand of the same black liquid dripped from the opening, landing at my feet with a wet plop. Mark held my arm. "We need to get out before whatever that is comes down." We darted to the back door, unlocked when I had tested it earlier, and fled into the night. The air was cold, and the wind moaned through bare branches. In the distance, the silhouette of the old family home stood like a monument to our terror, windows ragged and dark. I dared not look back until I reached Mark's car, huddling in the passenger seat as he drove me home. For days, neither of us spoke of what happened. I avoided my own home, staying at Mark's apartment, plagued by restless sleep and nightmares. Each morning, I woke drenched in sweat, images of twisted faces and ragged hands urging me to open me echoing in my mind. I refused to return to the house. Friends who asked about the funeral, the estate, the gift from my grandmother. All I could do was shake my head and say I was still grieving. But the box remained. It had slipped away from me that first night, but I felt its presence lurking in every shadow. On the third day, I received a package at Mark's door. A small wooden box, identical to the one I had inherited. No return address, just my name in neat cursive. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside lay the journal, now open to a blank page. The words, "Write your name," were scrawled in dripping black ink. Beneath them, etched into the wood of the box itself, were new carvings. My name, followed by an ellipsis. I closed the box, flinching as it seemed to pulse in my hands. Realization dawned. The box was not an object, but a living conduit, seeking a host. If I named myself, perhaps I would be trapped inside the pages, my nightmares forever bound. I tossed it into the bathtub, slammed the door, and drank myself into oblivion. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother as a young woman, stage lights flickering behind her. She held the box and smiled sadly.
I tried to contain it. It belongs to no one, yet it must choose someone.
I watched as her face transformed, eyes sinking into darkness, mouth opening in a silent scream. The dream dissolved into a cacophony of whispers, growing louder until I awoke with a start. I knew what I had to do. At dawn, I drove back to the old house, determined to end this once and for all. The yard was overgrown, its gate hanging on rusted hinges. Inside, the front door swung open as if inviting me. In the living room, dust coated everything. Furniture lay in heaps under tattered sheets. On the coffee table rested the box, lid closed as though waiting. My stomach coiled in knots as I approached. I reached out, hands trembling, and opened the lid. The journal lay inside, pages blank. I took a deep breath and wrote my name in the smeared black ink. Ethan Bennett. The ink soaked into the paper, then black tendrils spilled out from the journal, coiling around my wrists and ankles. pulling me toward the box. I struggled to scream, but no sound emerged. In that moment, a memory surged. My grandmother's final entry before she passed. I had found it tucked in the back of the journal, words scrawled in shaky script.
If you are reading this, know that there is no escape. I have trapped myself within these pages to keep it from choosing. But the box is patient. It waits for the next soul. If you find a way to banish it, burn it, drown it, bury it where no light can reach, you may be free. But I doubt any flame can consume it, and water only contains it for a time. I fear there is no end.
Tears blurred my vision as the darkness pulled me closer. I seized a nearby lighter from my pocket, somehow knowing it was the only tool I had. As the inky tendrils began to drag me into the box's depths, I flicked the flame. The flame hovered above the journal, as though reluctant to touch the paper. I clenched my jaw, bearing the pain as the darkness writhed against me. The ink hissed, dissolving into steam. The tendrils recoiled, screaming in silent agony. I threw the burning journal into the fireplace hearth nearby, and suddenly, the flames roared to life, consuming pages at a furious pace. Black smoke billowed upward, carrying shrieks that echoed through the empty halls. The box convulsed, splinters of wood falling to the floor. In a final, violent pulse, it burst open, releasing a wave of choking, acrid smoke that forced me to stagger back. I collapsed to the floor as the smoke cleared. The box was reduced to ashes in the hearth. The journal lay charred beyond recognition. The room felt unnaturally still, as though relieved to exhale for the first time in decades. I stumbled outside as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. The old oak tree in the yard stood silent, witness to my ordeal. The air smelled of soot and wet wood, but it felt cleaner somehow. I took a shaky breath, letting the cool morning air fill my lungs. I do not know if the box is truly gone. Some nights I wake with a start, feeling an icy brush against my cheek, hearing a faint whisper of my name. But I have learned to resist, to dismiss the shadows that linger in the corners of my vision. I have sealed that room, boarding up the attic door and pouring concrete over the fireplace hearth. I have moved away, changed my number, and started a new life in another city, one where old houses and mysterious boxes do not exist. Yet sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the box, open on my desk, and the promise it whispers.
Open me.
I force myself to recall the flames, the hiss of burning pages, the way the darkness recoiled as if wounded. I repeat to myself the memory of my grandmother's final sacrifice, how she trapped herself in those pages to keep the box at bay. I doubt I will ever be free of the nightmare box entirely, but I can hold on to the knowledge that, for now, it remains confined to ash.